apologize for yelling, but my microphone doesn't work tonight. It worked earlier tonight, and then when we hooked up everything else, it stopped working, even though the battery's on. So I don't know what the mystery is, but we'll figure it out before February. Because this is the last Tony Woyak of our summer series, and we'll start again in the new year. And I wanted to let you know, in case you haven't heard before, but we've got most of the Tony Woyaks on our website. You can download them for free. There's a piece of paper like this in the back that tells you about all of them. Unfortunately, we didn't start until about 10 years to record them, 10 years ago. And it was 10 years ago, right before we started recording, was the last time John Anderson was here to talk about the courthouse. So, lucky for us, he's coming back tonight. He's refurnished what he said 10 years ago. And he's added new stuff. So we're really excited about that. So what else do I need to tell you? Oh, the other thing is about John, this will be his 5th presentation before the Tony Woyak Festival. It's 5th. And you know, Bob Macroth has done 19, so that makes 5 small.
Don't even ask.
No, we can't.
I'm not that exciting.
That one. But really, 5 is very, very nice. Very nice. So you'll find, if you really like listening to John, there are already 3 programs that he's done that are on, have been recorded. We just missed the one about the courthouse, but here we are tonight. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate your attendance and your enthusiasm for telling stories. Nobody can tell good stories like John Anderson, right? Right. Welcome, John.
You know why I tell good stories?
No.
Because I know where all the bodies are buried around here. So. 6 generations in one place, you have a tendency to pile up some stories. So I'm going to finish up this year. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. Okay. So, and I can assure you, I think this will be the first presentation at the Tony Woyak Festival that will have song and dance. Song and dance. Now the good news is I'm not doing either one of those because I can't hold a tune, and Carrie will vouch that I can't dance a lick. So I'm not doing either one. So my favorite thing to do though is I love to tell stories, and my favorite subject is us because we have some great stories. And I will tell you this, you're going to see some fun stuff, you're going to listen to some fun stuff. Some of it's a little dry, but you'll learn a few things. But in this presentation is the single greatest story in the history of Bayfield County. Yes. Hands down. Second place is a distant second place. So let's get going. Watch the magic. The courthouses of Bayfield and LaPointe County. Who knew that we used to be called LaPointe County? Who knew that? About half of you did. And by the way, it's John Petter Anderson. We've had that discussion. So it's not Peter, it's Petter. So. The undiscovered country, for those of you who like to read Hamlet, Wisconsin, before they became a state, and before our territorial status in 1836, we were part of the Northwest Territory. And you can see even right here, it even shows Saint-Esprit, which was a settlement in 1665. Probably the first house built by a white man in Wisconsin was right there. Right near the mouth of Whittlesea Creek. Oops, wrong button. There we go. The oral traditions of LaPointe tell us that the Ojibwe arrived there at about the time that Columbus arrived in America, in about 1490. By the time the French started to arrive in the 1600s, however, LaPointe had almost been abandoned by the Ojibwe, but they had just started to re-establish a footprint there. And even though the French were here in the 1660s, and maybe even a little bit before that, in 1693 a fort was built at LaPointe, near where Grants Point is, and that became the first settlement of the Western-style rule of law in this area. LaPointe County, 1845. Who knows when we became a state? 1848, right? So LaPointe County existed even before statehood as part of the territory. You can see the maps here. This map is of the Northwest Territory and the Wisconsin Territory. The Wisconsin Territory before statehood actually extended all the way up into Minnesota. Here's one of the original maps of Wisconsin. And I think this is really fun because you see up here, that entire area is LaPointe County. Almost as far south as, way down by Burnett County, Superior to the Montreal River, all the way down the whole northern corner of Wisconsin was LaPointe County. By 1851, a few years after statehood, LaPointe County, as you can see, still had about the same borders. It represented all of this, and you can start to see how Wisconsin is starting to form its statehood and the respective counties. This is interesting. 1848, 6 years later, here we are, LaPointe County. We've shrunk because Douglas County became in existence in 1854. So here's LaPointe County right here. Again, from Hurley all the way down well past Hayward. And here's an early plat of the city of Bayfield and the town of Bayfield. And I want to point this out only because in a little bit we're going to talk about, you see this little right here? That's the town square. And this is such an early plat. You can see it says LaPointe County on it, map of Bayfield, LaPointe County. This town square became prominent in one of the original courthouses in Bayfield County. So that town square, even though the streets aren't named, is where the courthouse in Bayfield is right now. Was. The building's still there. LaPointe County Courthouse was located on the east side of Main Street and the south of the Old Town Dock. So here's an aerial photograph. I'll just kind of show you. So for those of you who are geographically have difficulty knowing where north is, who doesn't know where north and south is here? So, should I give you a little hint? Washburn's got the greatest hint in the whole world about how to figure out where north and south is. Washington Avenue runs almost exactly north and south. So you can just say, okay, that's going north, right there. So, but here's north, and if you drew a line here, this would be south, and this would be going north, and this is the village of LaPointe, and this would be west, and this would be going east. So we know the first courthouse of LaPointe County was somewhere east, on the east side of the main street. So here's the main street right there. So it was right over here, but south of the town dock, and the town dock was always pretty much in the location it is now. So we know it was right in there. It's not there anymore. That, however, is there right now. Anybody recognize this? This house is on Main Street in the town of LaPointe. If you ever go over there, you walk right by it every single time. This is pretty much the location where the original courthouse was. Now, this next slide, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's right. The Treaty House. This is where the Treaty of 1854 was signed, the LaPointe Treaty. And this was the home of Judge John Bell, a very famous and unique individual. He could be an entirely new project just to talk about. But this is Treaty House. This most likely was the courthouse in the town of LaPointe. And even though that's gone, there's still part of it there. Who's gone to the museum in Madeline Island? You recognize this little wooden structure? Anybody know what that is? It's, of course, I'm telling you right there in writing. So, but that's the original jail. That's the LaPointe County Jail. It still exists. It's still there. That's the only structure left from what was the courthouse on Madeline Island. The rise and fall of LaPointe. So in 1858-59, the town of Bayfield became a little bit emboldened in itself, and it decided we want to have the county seat moved from LaPointe. LaPointe was, by the mid-19th century, it was becoming pretty clear that LaPointe was not going to be a commercial center. Why would LaPointe not become a commercial center? because you're not going to get a railroad there, that's why. They kind of figured that out. The trains are not coming to town if you live in LaPointe, but the trains might be coming to town in Bayfield. So Bayfield undertook a process of getting the county seat moved to town of Bayfield and off LaPointe. Ironically, in 1860, Ashland County was created. Now, have you ever wondered, why are the Apostle Islands in Ashland County, with the exception of 3 or 4 of them? Anybody know the answer to it? It's because of this right here. Okay? This is why the boundary was drawn. LaPointe got their nose out of joint because they lost the county seat to Bayfield. We're going to hear about it a little bit later, a nice little song about it. So they petitioned the legislature to include LaPointe into Ashland County because they thought they were going to be the county seat again. They were wrong. Why? Because the trains aren't coming to LaPointe. Ironically, even though the town of Ashland became the county seat in 1860, there was a smallpox epidemic in Ashland, and the city, it wasn't the city then, it was the town, was pretty much abandoned. There wasn't much left, and the county seat actually moved back to LaPointe. So LaPointe was the county seat in Ashland County from about 1863 to about 1873. Ashland County is created, and this isn't the greatest map, but Ashland County, when it was created, is a big L. It goes like this. And of course, here is LaPointe County, which of course is now Bayfield County. And here's a better map. You can actually see it. Ashland County goes all the way down. Those are the Hayward area lakes right there. So that actually encompassed Ashland County at that time. And this is 1866. And in 1866, what happened? Well, LaPointe County disappeared and it was renamed Bayfield County. Well, the boundaries of Bayfield County oops.
Got it?
Got it. Okay. The harbor city, Bayfield. This, even though it wasn't built until the 1870s, is the first structure built on the mainland for the Bayfield County Courthouse. It was located on Font and Broad Street. Anybody know where Font is? You're going to find out. Now, little is known about the structures that were used for the county courthouse between 1858 and 1873. Why? Because the town of Bayfield was going through a great deal of struggle. It didn't know if it was going to make it. They were banking very, very hard on the railroad coming to Bayfield. So things went up and down, population went up and down. The county board just simply wasn't willing to put the resources and money into actually building a new courthouse until they knew that the town of Bayfield was going to make it. Ashland County, of course, stole the thunder, and they owned most of the Apostle Islands. The city of Ashland took over and, of course, became the commercial center for most of this area. Henry Rice was one of the early big property owners in Bayfield. He was the mover and shaker at this time. He owned most of the town of Bayfield, including the property where the courthouse was built. He was betting very, very hard on the railroad getting to Bayfield. He bet hard and he lost. He wanted to become a millionaire. He did not become a millionaire. But he's a prominent person in our history. But while Bayfield was going up and down, the 1860 census showed that there were only 353 people left in the city, in the town of Bayfield, and there were 38 unoccupied buildings. This was a major decrease from the reported population in 1857, as cited by the Bayfield Mercury newspaper, of nearly 600 people. So Bayfield was struggling. Now, by 1873, things settled down a little bit, and the county board spent almost $10,000 to build this really nice, beautiful structure. Font Street was renamed Manypenny Avenue. That was where Font Street is. So who's had pizza at the bistro up in Bayfield? That's not a bad pizza, by the way. But if you looked out the door, the area which would have been the old Omaha Railroad, you'd have been looking at the county courthouse right there. That's where it was. Here's another view, but this is a picture from quite a ways kind of south and west of the city, but you can see in the background there, say Ye Olden Courthouse right there. That's where it is right there. This is 1875. Now, in 1883, that courthouse was completely destroyed by fire. It was all made of wood, and the only thing that wasn't made of wood in that courthouse was the vault and the chimney. And by an ironic twist of fate, and I'm going to show you this here because I couldn't resist this, and my clerk of court, Deidre Zifko, is here today. Deidre, wave back there. Where is she? There she is. She's waving. I said, Deidre, you got to take me down to the vault because I got to bring it out. So in the fire, the chimney collapsed and fell on the vault and protected it. So the records that were in that particular vault survived. And here are some of them right here. The records from LaPointe County of 1859.
Wow.
Yeah. We still have these, and I will eventually make sure the Historical Society, the Wisconsin State Historical Society, gets all this. But I don't trust anybody yet, so I'm taking care of it until you guys throw me out of Washburn and throw me out of office. This stuff's important to me. But I brought it here, and I really, you can't see it, but anybody wants to look through it. This is when people knew how to write. So these are some of the court records. I brought this along. It's just fun. 1859 LaPointe County. And we have several of those books down there. And they're public record. If anybody wants to go down and sit in the vault, we'll let you do that. So after the fire, of course, it was time to build something that would survive. So Henry Rice decided, I'm going to donate, remember the town square I showed you from the plat? He's going to donate the town square for a new courthouse, a brownstone courthouse. And the county board allocated $700 to rent some places, and then they started talking about it's time to build a new courthouse, and Henry Rice decided, I'm going to donate this land. However, Henry Rice was a good businessman, and he always wanted to keep his finger in the pot as much as he could. So he included in the deed a reversionary clause, and for lawyer speak, that means if something doesn't do something, I get it back. So Henry Rice had this, if the land was not used for a public purpose, he would get it back. And that defect in title was one of the biggest reasons why we have a courthouse today in Washburn and not in Bayfield. And we'll get to that in just a second. The Bayfield County Press of 31 March 1883 proclaims plans for an elegant two-story brownstone structure can be built for $20,000. Can you imagine $20,000? You can't build a garage for $20,000 today. You can't buy a car for $20,000 today. Bids for the new courthouse were let on June 16th of 1883. Consulting architects were in town. The firm of Cook and Hyde of Milwaukee were here. They actually owned one of the proprietors of the Basswood Island Quarry, where the brownstone was quarried for the courthouse on Bayfield. And work began. July of 1883, a contingency of men were in town. I love this picture. This is a very rare picture. This is a picture taken of the early construction of the courthouse in Bayfield. You can see the lower level and the first floor are there. Bayfield County Press says on August 11th, 25 men were working at the courthouse site and the basement walls are nearing ground level. And there she is when she was all done. Nice building. It's still there, by the way, for those of you who know, except it's missing something. We'll talk about that in just a minute. There were parties, funerals, and electricity in the building by 1891. The jail housed in the basement. They never built a jail, so the jail was put in the basement of the courthouse, and ironically, the jail was condemned over and over again, and that was one of the other reasons that Washburn got the courthouse. It was an impressive building using the brownstone from the local area. It has, as we can see here, the Masonic rites and the cornerstone was laid on September 18th, and it became the courthouse in the second half of 1883. It has a Romanist revival style of architecture. And you can tell these arched windows are clear. You know what the most famous Romanesque revival architecture is in the United States? Recognizes this building. It's the Smithsonian, right? Look at those windows. The same arch in the windows and the doorways that you saw in Bayfield. It was a real interesting architectural technique that was used right before the neoclassical age. So, if you didn't know, for those of you who maybe don't know, this building is still there. It's the headquarters for the National Park Service, LaPointe Island's National Lakeshore. That's their headquarters. That's been their headquarters since the 70s. This picture here is from maybe the first 10 years in the 20th century. And as you can see, they had a pretty good winter that year. Here's another look at it. Really pretty view. This picture is 1901, from 1901. Next time you go up there and take a look, it's real cool engraving right up above the front door. It's there. You need to take a look at it if you get a chance. I get kind of geeked out about this kind of stuff. Okay, I realize that that's not a lot of fun, but it is for me, so you're stuck with it. So there you go. And of course, here's another view about 1920. So no good deed goes unpunished, right? So Henry Rice says, oh, here's a wonderful piece of land. Use it to build a courthouse. They built a courthouse. And all of a sudden, Washburn starts to show up. And Henry Rice knew at this point that they were only going to get an auxiliary line into Bayfield on the railroad. And with the help of the Chicago, Minneapolis, and Omaha Railroad, with the support of the Washburn Crosby Mills, decided that a very nice little deep water harbor just across from Ashland would be an appropriate place to locate a grain elevator. Who's Washburn Crosby?
Milling guy.
He's a milling guy, yeah. Okay. Gold medal flour. Ring a bell. General Mills, right? Almost all of your breakfast cereal. General Mills. And why is it Washburn Crosby? Well, Caldwell C. Washburn. Pete Mann did a nice presentation on our governor a few years back. Was the governor of Wisconsin from 1873 to 1874. One of the founders of the Washburn Crosby Mills. One of the founders of General Mills. And ironically, a major shareholder in the Chicago-Omaha Railroad. And here's the rise of Washburn. This photograph was taken probably 1885. The town is starting to pop up. This is taken from probably the beginning of the dock and the grain elevator. And of course, here's another concept of what Washburn looked like in the early years. Washburn was growing very, very fast. In 1884, 1 year after its founding, already 400 people flooded into Washburn, and by 1885 the population exceeded 700, thereby passing Bayfield after 2 years, now the most populated town in Bayfield County. It was a boom town, right? Lake and timber, the freighters were coming in here for timber. Of course, the Sprague and Bigelow Mills down by West End Park. And we can't forget this. This didn't hurt either. We had a brewery, and a great big one. Anybody know where the brewery was? Yeah, the middle school, high school is sitting right on top of the old Washburn Brewery right now, in a particularly unusual, unique twist of fate that the high school is sitting on top of the brewery. So, Bayfield became emboldened in 1858. Washburn starts to become emboldened in 1887 and 1892. So with Washburn growing fast, Washburn came with the idea that it's time that we have the county seat. And with people such as one of our all-time favorite scoundrels of Washburn, A.C. Probert, who was the head of the committee to bring the county courthouse here, he, along with others, started the process of getting the county seat to Washburn. Now, you had to sign a referendum to get a ballot, to have a referendum to vote on in the county. Now, in 1892, who could vote? Men. Who couldn't vote? Women. But it wasn't just men. Voting in the United States it was not always this wonderful free egalitarian thing. Many places you had to be a freeholder. Anybody know what a freeholder is? You have to own land to vote. You have to be a man and you have to own land. And they rhyme together, not by coincidence. So, but you had to be a freeholder to sign this petition. So how did they do that? Well, A.C. Probert owned the land where the courthouse is now, and it was all subdivided in these little 25-foot lots right across from Gary Holman's place over there. And they sold lots for $25 a lot. So everyone who paid $25 then had to sign the petition to get it on the ballot to move the courthouse from Bayfield to Washburn. Ingenious, snaky, and lousy, but it was an ingenious way to get enough signatures. And of course, it also had a provision in it that the landowners had to then convert it over to give it to the county if in fact they wanted it. So it was all a big fraud. In 1892, the year of our controversy, after a similar attempt failed in 1887, the county, the city of Washburn, the town of Washburn moved ahead and got a ballot initiative to move the county courthouse from Bayfield to Washburn. And one of the reasons was that, well, Bayfield County doesn't even have clear title to the courthouse they have in Bayfield. And we have this wonderful structure, the old Pioneer School, which was located exactly due west of where the courthouse is today. Beautiful wood structure. To be quite frank, it was a pile of junk, because most of everything that wasn't made of brownstone in Washburn, built from 1880 to 1895, was slapped up quick. Slab wood, and away it went. It went up, and this structure was not any good. But it sure made for a good story. We're going to use the Pioneer School to be the new courthouse, free and clear. I already told this part of the story. So here's another, this is on East Fifth Street. There's a better picture of the Pioneer School. It looks kind of impressive. It was kind of a cool building, but as you'll find out a little bit later, it didn't last very long. In reality, the Pioneer School was in no way suitable. Today, this building still exists in Bayfield, and the Pioneer School was torn down right around World War II. And it had been abandoned for years before that. So a war of words and dueling newspapers throughout the county. But here's the vote total. And the reality is this: Washburn had grown so big by that time that it really didn't make much difference. There just wasn't enough votes in the rest of the county. So here are the vote totals to move it. In the town of Washburn, 1,207 people voted to move it. 51, who I'm sure they all threw out of town after that and voted no, voted for it. In the town of Bayfield, 41 voted yes, and 602 voted no. Iron River wanted to keep it in Bayfield for some reason. They were mad at Washburn about something. And then Mason Drummond, the other area where there was actually some people living at that time, voted to move it. So the total was 1,755 to 1,147. This number right here, compared to that number right there, it didn't matter. Washburn was going to win this race. Of course, it started one of the great rivalries in northern Wisconsin between the Castle Guards and the Trollers. It's now a friendly one, but this left a really difficult taste in a lot of people's mouths in the town of Bayfield after this courthouse caper went through. You got to remember, you're going to hear it a little bit later, I mean, we didn't just take the courthouse, we took the courthouse clock. I mean, that's kind of mean-spirited. We gave it back to them in the 1920s, but still, that's kind of mean. So. For the final salt in the wound, this is a great story. Right at the time of the referendum passing, Bayfield sought an injunction from the court, and they had to serve the injunction on the county clerk, who happened to be in Washburn at the time. And to avoid personal service to effectuate it, the county clerk hid in the attic of the brewery, which, you know, is incredibly funny. Can you imagine what he was doing up there? And he waited out, and by the time that they actually got him served, the governor had certified it, and it was done, and the people were heading to Bayfield and taking the courthouse back to Washburn. And there was a big party, so I'm going to need some help now. Now comes the singing and dancing. And what you're about to see hasn't been shown or seen by many people in a lot of years. You're going to recognize some people that are no longer with us. It's really fun. But I'm going to need, I think we got to do the, got the audio, so here we go.
There's a little buzz.
It's a little buzz, and maybe we'll have to turn it up a little bit.
Washburn's prosperity had reached such a zenith in 1892 that a movement had begun to remove the courthouse from Bayfield to Washburn. The air about town that fall and summer was all rough and ready, no holds barred.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, at this time we shall hear some very important words from one of our fair city's finest citizens, the Honorable F.J. Meehan.
Owners and taxpayers of Bayfield County, Wisconsin, on this day, the 7th of November, in the year of our controversy, 1892, tomorrow you will cast your vote for or against removing the county seat from Bayfield to Washburn. Since Washburn has come into prominence, very many throughout the county have expressed the conviction it would be far better for Washburn, the county seat. And a constantly growing sentiment in favor of removing it from Bayfield exists. What advantages would there be for the county at large in having the seat at Washburn? Several. First, in the line of business considerations. The record of the past 9 years shows that Bayfield County has and is spending an average of $1,000 a year on her courthouse at Bayfield, and yet the jail has been condemned by state authorities again and again as unhealthy. Well, a disgrace to Bayfield County. Furthermore, the present courthouse must be enlarged for the convenience of transaction. And the county does not even have clear title to the land the structure sits on. Well, it will take at least $15,000 to put the present courthouse in proper condition and build a new jail. What? The expenses must be borne by the taxpayer. Do the people want to do this on land to which they only have squatters' rights? Or will they accept free and clear an absolute title to the best and most handsome block in Washburn with a substantial building thereon? On convenience, Washburn is 13 miles nearer the center of population than any other point. So far as accessibility of the two places, there can be no question but what this city leads its neighbor by a long ways. Bayfield has 3 trains a day and 2 boats. Washburn has 3 painted lanes a day and 7 boats. Much is said about the folly of abandoning $50,000 worth of property. But we would call a man a fool who would talk about having lost a horse when he got a better one for letting the first one go. Every principle says, except Washburn's proposal.
What a day, December 2nd, 1892. The boats were counted, my dad and others, including old Olson, had 8 wagons hitched and ready for the ride to Bayfield to get the county papers. The minute Governor Beck stepped outside the Capitol in Madison to proclaim Washburn the new county seat, word was telegraphed here and we took off. Earlier, some of the courthouse committee took the train north to lead the Bayfield leaders astray in the tavern. Here, have a drink. No hard feelings. Here, have another. Well, we took everything that was loose, and one thing that wasn't, the courthouse clock. Yeah! Crack the whip! So it's time to move the county papers 13 miles south. We got to Washburn after dark. There will be bonfires tonight, dancing in the street. Washburn is set down and put the county seat. Up in the harbor city, there are a little slower and cold. Point is they took it from the point, easy come, easy go. Eight wagons hitched and ready for the ride. Ready for the governor to step outside. The telegram will tell us it's official, we can leave. This will be a day long remember. It's official, we can leave. Hallelujah, yeah. The old courthouse in Bayfield will echo when we're through. See you later, Ma. I'm on the golf course with my dad. We're bringing home the party after dark. There will be bonfires tonight and dancing in the street. Washburn just sat down and took the county seat. Up in the harbor city, there are a little store I know. Point is they took it from the point, easy come, easy go. It was an inside job, those who didn't know we did that. And locked up in a room, we took everything loose. We were all mountain files as we loaded up the wagon. Then we high-stepped our feet out of town. Here we come, we're all laughing down the old North Road. Our ponies are all foaming at the mouth. I can see the ivory house, I can see Robert's Bank. The county seat that's moved south. There will be bonfires tonight and dancing in the street. Washburn just sat down and took the county seat. Up in the harbor city, there are a little store I know. Point is they took it from the point, easy come, easy go. Point is they took it from the point, easy come, easy go.
Wasn't that fun? So I got to tell you, story of my family is that my great-grandfather Uston was part of that crew. We never found out whether he was the part that stole the stuff or took them drinking. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that question. He was in the drinking group. By 1893, the level of deceit became absolutely clear. Only 5 months after the vote to move the county seat to Washburn, the county board voted to spend $12,500 to build a jail. Why? Turns out Washburn didn't have a jail. Then, in the spring of 1894, the county board heard a report from the committee delegated to determine how best to renovate the Pioneer School. And the committee commented that the only funds that should be used on the building should be funds to tear it down. And there started the process of the new courthouse in Washburn. This is the architectural rendering of what that courthouse was originally supposed to look like. And it looks substantially like it, but there's a couple of weird little quirks right there. See that?
Yeah.
There's a little statue up there. It's not there. But that's what it was supposed to look like. A seated Lady Justice was supposed to be right there. And of course, the cupola and the dome was supposed to be copper. And of course, it didn't become copper. And of course, the very top was a little more prominent on the flag. That's not there. But for the most part, this is what the county board decided to build. It was highly influenced by the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago. the Columbian Exposition. This brought in the neoclassical age. This is why you see an awful lot of buildings built in the late 1890s, early 20th century with the Greek columns. You who maybe you've probably seen it. Who's been to the observatory and the Natural History Museum? Well, that was down where the Chicago's World Fair is. That's where, and of course, all those buildings have that same type of style. That's what it looked like back then. So this says work begins, and of course, the county board then decided we got to spend $40,000 to build a new courthouse. Work started in 1894. And of course, it began to transform the hillside in Washburn. This was the building behind it. Anybody recognize this building? It's the castle, right? Obviously, this is the most prominent structure that was ever built in Bayfield County, ever, hands down. The courthouse is number 2. So I want to show you this picture. This is a picture from the early part of the 20th century. I enlarged it because you can, right here, and you see way in the background?
Oh, yeah.
There it is there.
Yeah.
There's the Walker High School, right behind there. We're going to see that in a little more detail in just a second. And of course, the original courthouse dome, it wasn't copper, but it was painted to be a copper color. Then, sometime in the early part of the 20th century, they painted silver. That's what most of us remember, the silver dome. And then it was painted back recently to its copper color. Now, this is my favorite new photograph. This really gets my historical blood going. So this is from the back looking south. The Historical Society found this in Washburn. Susan's back there, so this goes to Susan. She found this. Not so sure who the photographer was. This was before Chick Sheridan. So here we go. Let's take a look here. There's the courthouse, right there, with its copper-colored dome. There's the jail that the county board built. Look at this. They're growing corn right behind the courthouse here. Anybody know where this picture was taken? Where's the only place it could be taken? It was taken from the school. It was not in a school. It was taken from the top of the bell tower at the Walker High School. That's the only way you can see it. Here, look at that. There's the Pioneer School right there. That's where it is. That's where it was located, right there. You know, the courthouse is here. This is where the new addition is right there. There was the Pioneer School. Look at this here. There's the old German Lutheran church right there. Of course, the ungrown house would have been right over here then. And you can see there's the beginning of the merchandise stock way down there. What a great old picture of Washburn. Has anybody ever seen this picture before? This is a new one. So, you know, thank you, Susan, but this is a great photograph. This is the football field today, right there. Here's some pictures of when the jail was being built. And for some of you, you probably still remember the jail because it actually existed for quite some time. And here's another picture of the jail. And I want to back up here because for anybody that worked in the county garage, see that structure right there? That's the county garage. Had 2 little garages. That's where everyone stored whatever they needed back then. There's the jail again from 1899. In 1948, there was a temporary structure that was built in Washburn to house the jail, to house the prisoners. That was it. They finally started tearing it down in 1948. And this is probably what everybody that can remember what it looks like. This is standing on the right outside the existing county boardroom. There's a fire escape that goes down, and you can stand on that flat roof. Somebody was on that flat roof looking out, and that's the jail right there. And this structure existed through the late 70s and early 80s. And for those of you who care, I used to deliver groceries right to that door right there. And Donnie Stone would meet me there, and I'd deliver the groceries and give him the bill. That building was tore down, and of course the new jail was added on to what was then initially the nursing home across the street. Sheriff Frostman and his family lived in the jail residence for many years because that was common back then. There was a residence right in the jail. And of course, here's a nice picture from Chick Sheridan of a winter scene by the jail. And this is my favorite one. Is Julie here? Anybody know who this is? It's Julie Funnis. Her dad was one of the jailers, and they lived there. And what is she? She's about 4 or 5 years. So they got. Julie gave me this picture. That's our youngest inmate ever in Bayfield County. This is the county boardroom. This was the original courtroom in Bayfield County. Right here, it's now the county boardroom. It's upstairs, second floor. And here's what, of course, the Roman numerals for 1894, for those of you who know it. And of course, the courthouse about a decade or two after it was, well, this is probably 30 or 40 years after it was completed. Here's another view. So in 1937, they had to add an addition to it because, you know, and this is a very little known addition. And I'm just going to show it to you. You can see it way back here. The old courthouse just ended right there. They didn't have any vaults or any fireproof vaults or anything to store records. So they had to add on in 1937. But, you know, by 1937, they weren't milling brownstone anymore. The quarries were all shut down. And they added this, and they used some of the brownstone from the back of the building to try and mimic as much as they could. You can just, this is the only picture I've found that you can actually see it. And of course, then in 1964, a very uninspiring but nice administrative building was added to it. You can kind of see that, that's right there. And that covers up most of that 1937 edition. And then in 1998, the building was added onto again. And over here, they tried to mimic with, it's not brownstone, it's just colored cement. But it turned out to be a pretty good representation of the original courthouse. So it ties in pretty well. And here is what we remodeled the courtroom. And this was during my tenure. I wanted to make sure that we brought back the quarter-sawn look from the original courtroom up in the second floor of the courthouse. And we brought that same look into the new courtroom. So this is where I hold court today. Which, by the way, is the most technologically advanced courtroom in the state of Wisconsin. So, as of right now. And I will tell you this, we are the only courthouse, we are the only county in Wisconsin that can boast 3 county seats. And, unfortunately, I thought we were the oldest continuous running courthouse in the state. We are the second oldest continuous used courthouse in the state of Wisconsin. Green Lake County is just ahead of us. Not by much. This is what the outside addition in 1998 and 2008 looked like. We'll just kind of zip through. I know we're getting through it. So we memorialized the historical 3 counties. This is the bench behind where I sit. It represents 1693 is the primary founding of LaPointe. And the LaPointe's there, so this year represents that. 1858 to Bayfield, this year represents that. And 1892 to Washburn, this represents that. This brownstone was taken from the steeple from the Catholic Church. Remember Dean Dufek? Anybody remember Dean? Dean could really mill brownstone. He was a great stone worker. He milled all this to mimic what the outside of the courthouse looks like. He designed this and did it by hand. Isn't that remarkable? In 2018, for those of you who remember, the cupola was repainted back to its original color. And I think, to be honest with you, I like this. It's not copper, but you know, maybe someday. Now there's some weird quirks that people don't know about here. So, did you know we have stained glass windows in the courthouse? Yeah, you have to walk the back side, they're up there, and they used to look into the courtroom. But this is how government works. When they had to fix something, they did it the cheapest way possible, so they actually put plaster over the windows so you can't see them from the inside. So if they ever have to redo it again, call your county board supervisor and say, it's time to bring these back so we can see them in there. That's just too unique. Another unique thing that we have here, we're the only courthouse, we have a garden in the courthouse. We're the only courthouse in the state of Wisconsin with a garden. And here's a view from the top, and of course we also have a water retention place to catch runoff, which is kind of a unique area here. That catches the salt and runoff from snowbanks. Here's an aerial view of the existing courthouse. I'm going to fly through this real quick. And I like this because this shows the architectural design. This is as close as you're going to get up to the dome. And you can see just the cool little architectural features on the pillars. These are wood. They're not brownstone. Those are wood. And of course, here you can see this across, and the pillars, the Greek-style pillars. And of course, there's the dome. If you look down from your house, that's what it looks like. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a run through the Bayfield County Courthouses, the history of LaPointe and Bayfield County. I have so much fun doing this. I have to do a special thanks to Lars Larson, Bob Nelson from the Heritage Association in Bayfield, Steve Kotherman from the Wisconsin Historical Society, the Bayfield County Historical Society, the Washburn Historical Society, the Bayfield Heritage Association, the Madeline Island Historical Museum, the State of Wisconsin Historical Society, and the Nelson Ferris Productions. Thank you very much. And I want my staff to stand up. My whole staff is here. Stand up. The whole staff is here. So, they make you look really good. I got a shout out. So Emma Grove is Emma. Stand up. So Emma knows how to run computers way better than I do, and so she helped quite a bit with putting this together. So, thank you very much for coming. If anybody has any questions, comments, if you want to take a look at the LaPointe County book, I'm happy to show it to you. Yeah, I know I'm supposed to.
No, you're good, John.
I'm good. Okay, we have a question. Go ahead.
You should ask how many people climbed the blocks to get on the balcony behind the pillars.
Yes.
That's a good question. Do you know the answer?
At least one.
At least one. Yeah, so does anybody remember playing under the courthouse steps? Oh, yeah. Anybody remember probably having their first cigarette under the courthouse steps? Or something else? Yeah, so under the courthouse steps, there's a little entryway down there, and the kids used to play in there all the time. And some of them still do, but most kids don't go outside anymore. At least not that I can tell. Playing around on this, and of course, the other building in Washburn, the great challenge was the little ledge at the library. You had to walk around the ledge, and then you got to that door, and you had to jump across that door to get the other ledge. There was a lot of broken ankles on that one. I never made it. I fell quite a bit, but I wasn't a very good athlete. So, any other questions, comments? I hope you enjoyed it. It's kind of fun. Yeah, Susan, way in the back.
I just wanted to point out something that in between when the courthouse was in Bayfield and when it came here, the courthouse was in our town hall because there was, as the Pioneer School wasn't good enough. So
That's right.
This is from the 1931 paper when they were about to tear down the town hall. It says, on November 1892, the town hall was the scene of some riotous festivities following the daring and dramatic removal of the county seat from Bayfield to the city. And from that date until the spring of 1896, when the present courthouse building was completed and occupied, the town hall served as the county's temporary capital.
That's right. So Washburn's Town Hall, which was over on the east end of town at that time. You know where the DNR building is?
Yep.
That's pretty close to where the town hall was, right there. I think it actually is it's the exact same spot. So that's where the courthouse was for a few years. So I want to tell you one more story. When the courthouse in Washburn was built, it had one of the most unique technological advances. It had its own phone system. So you could sit at any desk in 1896. You had a phone at your desk. And you just had to push one button, and you could call anybody else in the courthouse. It was like an intercom system. It was a telephone system. It was very unique at the time, and the first courthouse in the state of Wisconsin to actually have that. So we were technologically advanced back then, too. Any other questions, comments? I'm getting hot up here, so it's time to quit. Thank you very much, everyone.